Okay, so I believe we are live. Hi, everyone. My name is Alex Otthofer. I'm from Lancaster Pride. I'm excited to do this live stream for National Coming Out Day. And I have some awesome panelists here as well. And we will get started shortly. We're going to wait for some folks to enter or viewers to enter our live stream. It looks like we have one viewer right now. Now, if I refresh here. Okay, cool. Now we have 7 viewers. That's awesome. Hi, everyone.
Welcome.
Cool.
Happy National Coming Out Day. Happy LGBTQ plus History Month. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us today for this amazing virtual town hall.
Yes, also happy Hispanic History, or is it Hispanic History?
Hispanic Heritage Month.
Hispanic Heritage Month.
It's also something like Mental Health Awareness Month or Day and ADHD Awareness Month. It's a whole month for my identities, minus Hispanic heritage. But I got the ADHD and the mental health and the coming out month and the history month all together.
A lot of things going on in October.
Right. I'm excited for Halloween. Although it's going to look different this year.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever costume that we have, we'll have to get creative with a mask.
Yes.
Yeah.
We could just get masks of our own face.
Yeah. I have seen those, actually.
Some of them are scary.
Yeah. So it looks like now we have 10 viewers. Hi to those folks who just joined us. My name is Alex, the co-chair for Lancaster Pride. I'm excited to host this National Coming Out Day virtual town hall. We'll get started shortly. We'll wait for some more folks to join us, and then we'll get started.
Oh, and someone posted in the live feed that's also Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Oh, okay.
Thank you so much, Kate, for that.
Oh, nice. We got 19 people on now.
Awesome.
I love watching the numbers grow.
Virtual town hall.
Cool. Well, I think this might be a good time to start then. I have some opening remarks. So today is National Coming Out Day. And I, before getting on the live stream, did a little bit of research into the background of Coming Out Day. So it is the 32nd anniversary of National Coming Out Day. And that means the inaugural Coming Out Day was in 1988. And it was formed after the year prior, 1987, the National March on Washington for Lesbian and Gay Rights took place on the same day, October 11th. And that's why this day was selected for National Coming Out Day. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I wanted to share a little bit of the history of that. So Lancaster Pride is really excited to be hosting this virtual town hall. We have some amazing panelists with us from all over Central and Southern PA. And very, very excited to have them speak on some various topics today. So without any further ado, I guess we could go around and share who we are, what we do, and then if you're comfortable, maybe sharing a little bit about your coming out experience. So I guess I'll start. I am co-chair for Lancaster Pride, and our other co-chair is Kim Klein. I am a volunteer with Pride. This is my second year serving on the board. Last year I was secretary. A little bit about me. I live in Lancaster, very close to downtown Lancaster, with my boyfriend, Chris. My coming out experience, I'm really fortunate to have a really loving and supportive family. I came out when I was in college to both my parents. I believe I was home for Thanksgiving break and I came out then, and it was very fortunate to have a family that was supportive and continues to support me. So that is a little bit about me. I will, if we want to go across the top of the screen and then below, Ricardo.
Hello, hello. Thank you so much, Alex, for the opportunity. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. My name is Ricardo Almodovar. I go by he, him, his pronouns.
You might be experiencing some technical difficulties here.
Oh, no. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh,
Ricardo, I can hear you.
okay. Uh-oh, it might just be on Alex's end. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, great. So as a gay man, I've learned that we have to come out of the closet numerous times in our lives, and doing it to everyone at once is nearly impossible. You know, I hope one day we'll dismantle the system that created such a cramped closet to begin with, right? Sadly, our very survival depends on keeping a part of us a secret. In my case, I was afraid of coming out to my best friends and terrified at coming out to my mother, but I knew I couldn't hold it in any longer. So my first coming out story transpired at the tender age of 16. I was hanging out with my two best friends as the sun was setting on a hot summer day. Our friendship developed after a lifetime of classes and countless after-school hangout sessions. We spent most of the day outdoors and decided to settle on an open field. We passed the time by talking and sharing stories, but mostly laughing. It was a moment of escape from all the responsibilities and stresses of teenage life. At that point, I was a tall, overweight, awkward adolescent with low self-esteem and even less self-confidence. Despite that, my friends took interest in me, and we talked about things like our aspirations or how our classes were going. Other times, we just talked pure nonsense. On that fateful night, someone decided we should play Truth or Dare. Yep, you guessed it. That question popped up almost immediately, and I knew it would happen as soon as the game was proposed. Nonetheless, I played along. Truth or Dare? I chose truth. Are you gay? Despite the intrusion, I refused to lie. No, but I might like boys, I admitted. I pondered this conversation over and over in my head, yet wasn't sure how I would even begin to reveal that hidden part of me. I knew it, one of them exclaimed. We all burst out laughing. There were very few openly gay people in our lives, and we discussed long and hard about what being gay meant. At that point in my youth, I was still a virgin and was unsure of if my inclinations were more one way or the other. So I decided to come out as bisexual. Outwardly, I thought I might have a chance at a traditional life with a woman, but inside, I was scared how others would perceive me if I chose to be with another man. I was only 16 years old, and we soon realized we had more questions than answered. So we shrugged it off and continued our night as the stars watched on. So coming out to my mother was a much different story. I was 18 years old and fresh out of high school. I was in my first same-sex relationship and lost my virginity to him shortly thereafter. That's when I finally came to terms with my homosexuality and accepted being a gold star carrying gay. He encouraged me to have a conversation with my mother regarding our relationship, but for a long time, I refused. I grew up in a low-income, Spanish-speaking household, and like many Puerto Rican families, the Catholic Church played a huge part in our lives. It was instilled in me that being gay was a sin, and that I should marry a woman with the goal of having as many children as possible. So one night, my partner and I decided to meet my mother for dinner. Following our meal, he nudged me to start the conversation. I inherited my mom's height, and I approached her as she stood statuesque in the kitchen. My partner looked on encouragingly as I nervously confessed, "Mommy, soy gay." And there was a long pause. She avoided eye contact as she started putting dishes away and attempted to change the subject. The rest of that evening is a blur, yet I remember leaving shortly thereafter feeling both shame and relief. I laid in bed with my partner later that night as I mulled over my decision. So being gay has its challenges, and I have felt the sting of homophobia, but I've also found community. As a result, I got involved, I earned 2 college degrees, I became an agent for change. I have worked in several social justice nonprofit organizations with a focus on the intersection of LGBTQ+, Latinx, and immigrant communities. I am passionate about creating change because our community deserves better, and we all deserve to live authentically as our whole selves. We must also pay homage to our predecessors who have fought tooth and nail to get us this far. We stand on their shoulders, and their sacrifice will not be in vain. Fortunately, we can all take collective action for LGBTQ+ liberation, equity, and inclusion, but we must all do our part. Coming out of the closet is just one way we may decide, and we may decide to come out at different times for different reasons. And when you do decide, you're not alone. Whether you speak your truth to friends or a parent, revealing one's sexual orientation or gender identity is a difficult but rewarding feat. Nonetheless, we'll get through this together, and we will be waiting with open arms. Thank you so much for organizing this, Alex, and I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, Ricardo. That's a great story, and I really appreciate. I would love to pass it on to Rafael. You could introduce yourself and a little bit about what you do and share your story.
Thanks, Alex. This is Rafael Alvarez Febo. I am the executive director, he, him, his pronouns, sorry. I'm the executive director for the Pennsylvania Commission on LGBTQ Affairs under Governor Tom Wolf. I've been in this position since December of last year. And it's really, unfortunate that COVID happened and then we had to kind of switch to virtual. I definitely enjoyed getting around the Commonwealth. And that was kind of cut short in March. So, but I've been, the executive director for several months now, and yeah, it's the Commission on LGBTQ Affairs was started from an executive order in 2018 by Governor Tom Wolf. It joined the other 4 commissions. So we have a commission on women, we have a commission on Latino affairs, African American affairs, and Asian Pacific American affairs. So the governor started this in 2018. It was under the leadership of Todd Snavel, someone that you all would know out of Lancaster. I myself am based out of North Philadelphia. I'm Puerto Rican. I was born in Puerto Rico, raised in Camden, New Jersey, and now I reside in North Philadelphia with my English bulldog, Bruno, who is chewing because as soon as I start speaking, he must join in. So if you hear any chewing sounds, I promise you it's not me. But yeah, no, I'm glad this, Alex and Ricardo, you guys put this together. I think, talking about our coming out stories is really important. I think it affirms what so many people have gone through. I think many stories are very similar. I think the feelings of anxiety that come with coming out are very similar. And I agree with Ricardo. We come out all the time. All the time. I mean, I think that, it's an understatement to say that you are coming out when you come out the first time, and then for the rest of your life, every day, you're coming out to a new person, a new experience. And it comes with the societal normalization, especially as a cis man, right? People ask me about my wife or my kids or whatever. And I'm like, as years progressed, I've learned to just be like, oh, actually, no, I'm gay. I don't have kids. I don't want kids. like very, very clear and cut. And I think that, it's part of the things that the work we have to do to continue to break down, this heteronormative society that we live in. But my coming out story, again, it's multiple, right? So my coming out story was in college. I was a freshman. I had just become a member of a Latino fraternity. I was going to Drexel, and most of Drexel is not very diverse. So I would go to Temple to find my family, right? To find my people. And I became part of a fraternity, and I just remember one of the fraternity brothers who was openly gay started kind of interrogating me, and obviously it was intrusive, but I think there was a moment where I kind of like finally told someone, right, and it was obviously a safe person, but it was like the first time that I verbalized it, right? I said yes, yes, I'm gay, or yes, I like men or whatever. And after that, I actually would travel around Pennsylvania with him. We would go to Allentown and go to bars and clubs up there. I was underage, but this is like 2007, 2008, so I think things were a little bit different. But we would go to these places just to kind of keep everything secret, right? Everything in Philly, I didn't want to get discovered in Philly. And the bigger coming out was at a meeting with all the fraternity brothers, because we were like our extended family, and it was a very supportive conversation, and people were just happy that I could be honest with them. But I think in those kinds of relationships, because your friends, you get to choose them, it does become okay, everyone is supportive right now, but it's really not about the words, it's about the actions. And I found that there was a mixed bag of reactions to me being an openly gay man, and not just openly gay, but not one to take crap from anyone. I'm very vocal. I'm very much like, no, I deserve the same amount of space as anyone else in this room. I deserve my seat at this table. And it became definitely a challenge. I think, when I was 21, I ended up coming out to my father first, actually. I'm really close to him. And I called him and I was like, hey, Dad, because he was living in Puerto Rico at the time. And, we just had a really long conversation, and it was just like very liberating. And I think that that's really the theme of coming out is a feeling of extreme liberation, because it's a weight off your shoulder that you can actually just tell people your authentic self. And then I came out to my mother soon after, because I didn't want them to have any bad blood with me for picking one over the other. But it's been really supportive, and I think that and everyone's story is different. Everyone goes through their own challenges with coming out. But again, regardless of your support system, you do have access to a community. If if you're having trouble with it, there's the Trevor Project, which has been really great, a great resource for many people who don't have a support system. But don't sacrifice the sense of freedom and liberation that you get when you come out for societal norms or for unsupportive people, because there's nothing worse than feeling oppressed in your own skin. So, with that, I'll pass it back to Alex. But I am freer today than I will ever be if I remained in the closet, and I'm happy about that.
Thank you so much, Rafael. The next person I would like to have speak is Andrienne.
Sure. Hey, y'all. My name is Andrienne. I use she and her pronouns. I'm also based in Philly, although I'm over in West Philly. I work for the Pennsylvania Budget and Policy Center, although I really suck at having a filter when it comes to speaking on these issues. So I will probably say things that are more my opinion than representative of the organization. So I want to put that one out there and cover my bases. I am also a proud member of ACT UP Philadelphia, the AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power, fighting to end the AIDS crisis, which is still ongoing. And, I want to echo what a few of the folks who went before me have said. Like, the coming out process for me was like a lot of steps. Like, it's a lot of slow steps that you take where you test the waters with the people that you trust. And then you are constantly coming out again. The first person that I had to come out to was myself. I came out a little bit later in life, although there had been very obvious signs. I think a lot of us can relate earlier on in life, but I don't think I'd ever realized it for myself. Coming out to myself took half a bottle of wine and a girl that I just found fascinating and wanted to be around all the time and didn't really understand why. And it took a little while to like really, I guess, understand who I was to myself and how I related to a queer identity. And it's changed over the years, and it's moved over the years, how I identify. I now identify as a queer woman. For a lot of times I was bisexual or figuring out my thing or questioning. But like, the process of coming out was really scary, but also incredibly liberating. It took me a little while to tell my friends, and I was actually unfortunately outed to an entire group of college friends. So on National Coming Out Day, reminder that it is not your job, if you're an ally, to tell on someone else's identity if they're not comfortable and not outwardly open. But I think one thing that I want to talk about is just, I spent 5 years in a job that I really liked. I worked in retail, but I worked for Lancome Cosmetics at Macy's. I liked my coworkers. There was some parts of it that were not perfect, but I spent 5 years of that job in the closet, despite working for an organization and a company that scored 100 on the HRC equality scale for businesses and corporations or whatever it is. And despite the fact that gay men were welcomed into the cosmetics industry and even a little bit fetishized, but were generally comfortable being out, and the women there loved them, the way that I heard them talk about queer women was a very, very different way. They were creeped out by them, or they had a lot of stigma against them. And so I spent 5 years lying. I spent a few years with a ring on my finger lying about why I had it, where I got it. And it wasn't until I left that job and was actually at a job where I could be my entire full self that I really, really felt like I was out. Because I could be myself all the time, at home, with my friends, and at my job, and even with my parents. And so it's a process, right? Like, I came out to myself, I came out to a couple friends that I felt were comfortable. Someone else came me out to a larger group of friends. And then it became a kind of piecemeal thing where you're living different lives in different spaces, which is really weird, and a weird life to live. I am proud to say that now I am obnoxiously out. If you follow me on social media, I talk about it a lot. It's a huge part of my identity because my community is so important to me. And I miss real in-person community right now a lot. And so I want to say thank you to Lancaster Pride for putting this together and allowing us to have a space for National Coming Out Day. With that, I think I'll pass it back to Alex. Maybe.
I think you're still on mute, Alex. Uh-oh, I think he might be having internet issues again. But thank you so much for sharing your story, Andrienne.
Oh, there we are. Here we are. We're back. Thank you, Andrienne. So to the folks that are just joining us now, welcome. We are going through and introducing ourselves. We have some amazing panelists here. We're talking about our story, what we do, a little bit about ourselves. So the next person I would like to have speak is Tesla.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tesla Taliaferro. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm here representing a few organizations today. I'm the president of the Rainbow Rose Center, which is York County's LGBTQIA+ resource center. We've been spending this past weekend celebrating our Equality Fest events. I'm also the secretary for PFLAG York, and the founder and one of the moderators for Spectrum York, which is a LGBTQIA plus young adult support group here in York County. I came out as transgender in 2017, in May of 2017, and I was previously married for 7 years and had a pretty happy relationship, but I wasn't at peace with myself. And so one day my spouse just asked, like, what's going on? I'm noticing you won't look at yourself in the mirror, or you're just really depressed all the time, even though you're really happy with who you are or who we are together. You're not happy with who you are. And never expecting to say it, and honestly not having had the language for it at the time because I grew up in a very conservative household, I just blurted out, I never wanted to be a woman. And my spouse was quiet for a moment, and then he said, that's okay. There are other people like that. And there's a support group here where we lived in Colorado Springs for people like that. At the time, I didn't realize it, but he knew about support groups like that because he also was struggling with his gender identity. And about 6 months after I came out, my spouse came out as transgender woman. And so she's now happily engaged, actually, to another woman. And so very happy for her. But regarding my story, I went to that transgender support group, and as a child, I'd always known, starting from age 2.5, when I first was going to church, and always wanted to go into the boys' bathroom with the boys because that's where I felt like I belonged. But I never had the language, like I said. And growing up, we had 3 gay couples within a 2-block radius and 2 lesbian couples in a 2-block radius. But I never grew up with gay or lesbian in my vocabulary. I was just always told those were men and women living in sin. And despite living in a region of Colorado where a lot of transgender individuals came to get their gender affirmation surgeries, that town just had a derogatory term that people knew it by. So transgender wasn't really a thing I knew about until high school and then college. And then I was of the understanding, incorrectly obviously, that it was only for people who were assigned male at birth transitioning to womanhood. And I never had the concept that I could go the other way. But at that support group meeting, I met 2 other younger transgender men. And I walked out of that meeting, I said, I now know my path for life. So I think that night I ordered myself a binder from GC2B, which is the best binding company around. And I went and got myself a gender therapist to help me explore this. But within 1 month of twice weekly therapy, my therapist said, I'm really sure this is the right journey for you. I'll write your hormone letter if that's what you want. And I had decided I wanted to medically transition. So in July of 2017, I started taking hormones, including testosterone. Around that time, my spouse and I decided that while we both loved each other and supported one another, he didn't want to be married to a man, and I supported that decision and didn't think it would work for us in the long term. So we decided to amicably divorce. And in October of 2017, I made the plan to move to York, Pennsylvania, to be with a close friend that I thought maybe we'd have a relationship with, but also because my surgeons were in Philadelphia. And so I moved out here in October of 2017, had my surgeries in November of 2017. So I super fast-tracked my transition, which I don't necessarily recommend. I really recommend therapy for anyone who's going through that. And then recovered from my surgeries really quick. And in about May of 2018, I realized that while I very much loved the person I moved out here to be with, I really love being with men. And so I recognized that I was gay. And so I had to come out a second time to everyone that not only am I transgender, I'm also a gay man. So that was fun. And I did that in May of 2018 about. And I think it was 2 months later, I met my partner, Charles, who's also on this stream. and he introduced me to things going on in York, including PFLAG, at the time what was called Equality Fest, and the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of York, where we met. So it's been a very interesting and exciting journey for me. I've gotten very involved with social justice issues here in York County, being the chair of the Social Justice Committee at my church and becoming the president of the Rainbow Rose Center, which is what grew out of Equality Fest to be a resource center for everybody who has these sorts of questions and needs connection to therapists and doctors and stuff here in York County, and being part of PFLAG York. So Charles is going to talk more about that, so I'm not going to take his thunder. So I'm going to pass it back to Alex. Thank you for the opportunity to be participating in this event.
Yes, thank you very much, Tesla. A question for you. If someone was looking to get connected with the Rainbow Rose Center, how would they get connected?
So there's a few ways to connect to us. I encourage everyone to check out our Facebook page, which is at Rainbow Rose Center, or go to our website at rainbowrosecenter.org. You can connect to us directly through our contact page there, by Facebook Messenger, or by emailing us at info@rainbowrosecenter.org. And so we're currently a virtual only center due to the pandemic having to shut down our offices, but we are able to connect people. Like I said, we've been celebrating Equality Fest weekend virtually all weekend. We have our coming out day celebration later this evening. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, I'm always happy to answer them.
Excellent, thank you so much. All right, so now I will pass it on to Charles.
Hi, my name's Charles Kress. I go by he and him. My story. Probably a few things that happened to me as a child made it very hard for me to come out. I did not come out till I was 42. I've had probably 4 to 5 different sexual molestations by a couple school teachers and a couple neighbor gentlemen, like to say, who were all supposed to be straight white males, very religious. So with the struggle of that going on, by the time I'm 10, I had no idea what was what. Like I said, I came out when I was 42. I had attempted my last unsuccessful suicide, and I came to with a police officer on my chest who I knew here in York, and he says to me, next time, Charles, we might not be here. So that was a very much a wake-up call. And at that time, I decided I was behind the scenes for several different LGBT community things here in York. One of them was Gay York Live, a TV show, the Lambda Group, and I decided, well, I'm coming out. So yes, 1994, October 11th, 26 years ago, I came out. And then that spring, a reporter did a story, and I was on the front page of the York Sunday News. So I really came out. As time went on, before I came out, I was married twice. Once, I would think for love and a child, and second time for an arranged marriage because of situations in my life and her life. And I've learned you never do a non-written agreement, no matter what it is. So after I came out, life got so much easier. I came through the PFLAG group, Parents and Friends of Lesbians and Gays. It's been running here in the York area for 22 years. And we have been really active lately with the trans families and friends at our meetings, which is held the third Tuesday of each month at the Unitarian Church. That was another thing that I decided I wanted to go back into, not religion, but maybe some type of spiritual group. And I found the Unitarian congregation here in York. I think that is probably about all I can really say. Life has been good.
Thank you for sharing, Charles. And welcome to anyone new who has just entered our live stream broadcast. We are hosting a virtual discussion on National Coming Out Day, and excited to now delve into some of the questions that we have for each of the panelists. We can go around similar to what we did with our introductions to kind of share a little bit of information and resources. Looks like we might be having another technical issue. Okay, so I'm not sure if everyone heard that. Welcome to our live stream. Excited to have some 5 amazing panelists with us today. I'm Alex from Lancaster Pride, and we just all shared a little bit about ourselves and our coming out story. One of the things that I took from a lot of these stories was support systems and the importance of getting connected with resources. And I know there were some resources mentioned, like the Trevor Project and even the Rainbow Rose Center, PFLAG, the Lancaster LGBTQ+ Coalition is a resource. If everyone could share, and we can do this in a casual manner across the screen, reiterate what resources are out there and how to get connected, I think that would be really beneficial for those watching. So I guess if we want to start with Ricardo? Charles just spoke about PFLAG York. Charles, if you want to, actually maybe we'll start with Charles and then go across. If you want to speak on behalf of getting involved with PFLAG York.
Yes, all you have to do is go to our webpage, which is being updated. It should be completed by December. You can find us on Facebook as well. As I mentioned, we do meet the 3rd Tuesday of each month at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation in York, PA. And our doors are always there and open for that one person who is coming in. But sometimes we find out while we're sitting there waiting for that one person, we're already in the room. Right?
Thank you. Ricardo, can you share a little bit about getting connected to some resources within Lancaster County?
Yes, thank you so much, Alex. For those of you just joining, my name is Ricardo Almodovar, and I'm a board member of the Lancaster LGBTQ+ Coalition, where we provide support, services, and overall engagement here in Lancaster. Thank you so much, Alex, for organizing this with Lancaster Pride. So I am going to drop the link here for the LGBTQ+ Coalition. So please stay connected. We have all the social medias. And we have different groups from, support groups for folks with chronic illnesses, to youth groups, and even folks that are recovering. So it's important for all of us to stay connected, and the LGBTQ+ Coalition is one way, at least in Lancaster. And then we also have one of our partner organizations, the LGBT Center of Central PA, with Amanda Arbor as the executive director. We've been working with her a little bit and they do a lot of and all their healthcare services too in the Harrisburg area. They also do some work here in Lancaster, and they provide social services, healthcare, and other important services we need for LGBTQ plus folks. So let me drop the link here in the group chat. So please check out the Lancaster LGBTQ plus Coalition, the LGBT Center of Central PA. And then all their healthcare services as well. Those are 3 organizations I suggest folks look up to in not just Lancaster, but in South Central Pennsylvania.
Excellent. Thank you, Ricardo. Is the coalition, do they still have open hours for people to drop in? I know everything is a little bit different now with COVID.
We do have an office here at the Candy Factory downtown Lancaster. Folks can stop in. It also varies if, folks can stop in typically Monday through Friday, 12 to 5 p.m. And then we'll have either Karen, our executive director, or Ellie Cochran, or one of our other colleagues with the coalition there to talk or to kind of get connected. So feel free to stop by. I'll drop the link here. And if you want to call in or schedule a meeting, they're more than happy to talk. So let me drop the links here. And in the meantime, should I popcorn it over to someone else, or do you have someone in mind?
Yes, if we could then go to Rafael, and to all of our panelists, if you do have a link to your organization, similar to Ricardo, please post it in the comments below so that viewers at home can get connected. All right, thank you, Rafael.
Thanks for explaining that, Alex. I was like, how is he doing this? No. So yeah, just a little bit about the commission. Again, we are been around for 2 years. I've been leading the commission since December of last year. The way commissions work is that there are 40 members of the commission. They're all volunteers. They're from all over the Commonwealth, usually community leaders in some way, executive directors of different organizations, and activists representing all portions of the LGBTQ community and all subsections of the Commonwealth. So on Facebook, you can follow us at PAC LGBTQ. So that's at PAC LGBTQ. Not a political PAC, but it's memorable, right? So check us out on Facebook. Our website is a lot harder to link up, so I'll drop that in the comments. But it's under the governor's webpage for the Commonwealth. And you can see all the members of the commission there and get connected. But I will say, and I'd like to repeat, especially since we're talking about resources for people coming out, the Trevor Project has a lot of material around coming out and supporting young people. I think that's super important. If you're somewhere isolated, if you don't have access to a car or, those other things, there are online resources. Find somewhere where you can, feel safe and call them or link up with them in however you feel comfortable. Would definitely encourage that. If there are centers in your area, reach out to them. Again, it's all about what you feel safe doing. And really, this is, if you're going through a coming out process, it is, your prerogative and it's at your speed. So I think that that's a big piece of advice I always like to leave people. One of my best friends came out shortly after I did, but he was 36 at the time and I was 21, right? And we went through a process of coming out together that, we helped each other. He supported me with my maturity that I needed, right, when I was 21. And I supported him with kind of just being like fearless around, I'm gay, screw everyone. This is me. I'm owning space. And I think, that was a really helpful relationship. I love him. Ruben, Ruben's amazing. But back to resources again. The Trevor Project is great. I don't want to give too much shine to specific parts of the of the Commonwealth, but Sisters PGH in Pittsburgh, working with trans people. Ciora Thomas, a commissioner on our commission, she is phenomenal. In Philadelphia, you have the Attic, which is a youth center. You have Mazzoni, which is a health center. You have Philadelphia Fight. There's tons of Galay. I was on the board for Galay for 4 years. Galay is an LGBTQ Latinx space. There's youth programming, trans programming, and testing, and a bunch of other programs within LGBT intersectional focus on Latinx and people of color. So Galay is excellent. It's in my neighborhood here in North Philadelphia. It's not in Center City. It's easily accessible to anyone that doesn't have a trans pass, doesn't have the ability to get downtown, or just doesn't want to go downtown, right? I think there's a lot of people like gravitating to their neighborhood. So your neighborhood LGBT center, call, see if they're open, see their hours, and do it however you feel safe. I think that's the most important thing I can say. It's on your terms, and make sure that you feel safe, that you're supported, and there's a support network of LGBT people across the state and across the country, to be honest.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Rafael. I just noticed there were some folks placing some questions down in the comment section. Feel free to submit any questions for our panelists down in the comment section, and once we are done sharing and answering some of the questions, we'll take some time at the end to help answer any questions. I did have a quick question, Rafael. We're speaking on resources for someone who is planning to come out. Could you also speak on any resources for family members once a person does come out to support their son or daughter, or their family member?
So I see here PFLAG is something that people have brought up. There are support groups, and actually there are some social media support groups for parents. I think that parents are honestly some of the most fierce advocates once they have the language, once they understand. I know my mom and dad I don't even tell them about any of the oppressive stuff I go through, right? Because they are fierce warriors for me, for their kids. So, and I think that came with a lot of education that I did with them. But there are so many support groups. I know in Harrisburg, before COVID, there was a support group happening in one of the churches. There are so many local support groups. Definitely, go online. I don't know any like super specific, but they're localized, right? I think getting connected to people that are close to you geographically, I think it's important, because you then talk about resources that are local, places that you can drop into. That's really important. I know that some digital platforms are great, but I think having a space to go to, or people that you can really connect to and say, oh yeah, on 3rd Street and downtown, we go here because I can take my kid and we can feel comfortable and talk and feel safe, I think is important. So I would encourage people to do some online searches to see what feels the best, but then check out places that have physical space to link up with people, with social distancing and all of the other precautions needed nowadays.
Great, thank you so much. Again, for those folks watching at home, thanks for joining us. We are discussing resources for those who are either planning to come out, or for those family members to support their family. So I would like to pass it on to Tesla.
Okay, sorry, I might have missed the question. Am I supposed to be, just aside from the Rainbow Rose Center, there are a lot of support groups in the York, Pennsylvania area. Someone mentioned the YLTS, which is a York Lancaster transgender support group. They are meeting, I believe they're meeting virtually right now. The Rainbow Rose Center also started a transgender support group that meets monthly on the fourth Saturdays of the month. Spectrum York is for all LGBTQI plus individuals ages 18 to 24. They meet 3 times a month. So they have a support meeting, they have a social meeting every month, and then they have an educational and support meeting. In addition to that, there is a support group for young children ages 14 to 21 ran through Planned Parenthood on Beaver Street. That's called The Curve. And I know that Planned Parenthood runs another one called Spectrum, and I think the other one's like the Rainbow Room or something, throughout all of Pennsylvania. So there's different support groups for children specifically, and they do a lot of education, as well as doing a lot of fun history information and just connection for the LGBTQ youth, in addition to things like PFLAG. Both, I believe, I don't know when, Charles would know when the PFLAG in Harrisburg meets, but PFLAG here in York meets on the 3rd Tuesdays of the month from 7 to 9. Did you want to
Yes,
interrupt,
it
Charles?
would be the 3rd Monday, because we used to do back-to-back meetings.
Okay, thank you, Charles. And Charles, did I miss any of the local meetings?
Transgender, you did the family and the individual group?
Yeah, so the Rainbow Rose Center's transgender support group is specifically for trans and non-binary people, but also their families. So we have a lot of people who come with or without the transgender individual specifically to ask questions, find out where can I get hormone replacement therapy? What do I need to be worried about regarding, puberty blockers and stuff? And those same questions can be answered a lot of times at PFLAG York as well. But as far as the Rainbow Rose Center, we specifically provide information on and support for LGBTQIA plus resources in and around York County. And then we also really work to promote and advocate for the inclusion of LGBTQIA plus individuals within our community, and really work towards education and increasing awareness of the rights, risks, and needs that the community faces on a day-to-day basis. So that's what our goal is, to make the community a safer place for not only just the LGBTQIA plus community, but for everyone who is part of our community in York County.
And speaking of York County, York City's Human Relations Commission, if you're LGBTQIA plus in the city, you are covered. But York County does not have a Human Relations Commission, which is now being worked on. We're pretty sure once things continue the way they are, there are those very dedicated people who are going to make this happen for the county, not just York City.
Thank you, Charles and Tesla. Adrienne, would you like to speak next?
Sure, and Rafael covered a lot of the good ones in Philly. I know Galilei is an excellent testing center. It's where I've gotten tested before, and it's super quick and you're in and out, unlike waiting an hour in the Planned Parenthood waiting room. So they're wonderful. And there's a lot of resources in Philly. So some of the ones that come to mind on top of what he mentioned is T-MAN, the Transmasculine Advocacy Network. They do some mutual aid work. I want to shout out that we do have a syringe exchange in Philadelphia, so you can exchange any used needles or hormone needles and get new ones for free. They do have a van if you don't want to go into the building. There is a private exchange Facebook group that is a wonderful resource that I don't want to shout out too loud, but you can find it. And is a place just for LGBTQ plus folks to connect and share resources and talk openly. I'll shout out ACT UP Philly. So ACT UP Philly has been around for 30 years, and we are still fighting to end the AIDS crisis through direct action. We organize a lot around housing, around healthcare, and around harm reduction. We have met every single Monday for 30 years. We are not in the basement of St. Luke's Church right now, obviously because of COVID, but we are meeting online via Zoom, and you can find more information on actupphilly.org or on our Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. And we are doing a lot of organizing around issues of housing right now, because that's a big area of importance when it comes to HIV positive folks, is how that intersects with housing, especially right now in the current COVID-19 crisis. I will think of more, I guarantee, and I can always put those down in the chat.
And speaking of more, I just thought of two things that one was the Martin Library here in York. They have a youth GL, what is Tesla?
GSA, Gay Straight Alliance program
Yes.
for 13 to 18, I believe, maybe 21 as well.
Yeah. And the one other thing that I haven't heard anybody speak on yet, I was wondering if anybody has any connection or information for the Alter Health in
Alter
Harrisburg.
Health? Yeah.
Yes.
I know somebody posted about Alter Health Services earlier. They do free STI testing every Wednesday. Right now you have to call and set up an appointment, but usually it's a walk-in clinic. So very good resource.
Oh, and I forgot, especially when it comes to more central PA, so outside of my areas, we've worked a lot with CASA and Make the Road, both who do organizing with LGBTQ, POC, and our wonderful groups. So I want to shout that one out there. And the Trans Youth Equality Foundation, they usually run summer camps, and you can sponsor a kid's summer camp to get away and be with kids like themselves. They also have some educational resources on their
And one other
website
organization that I think deserves a huge shout out is Trans Central PA. They've been around for over 20 years and are specifically a organization by transgender people for transgender people and the family. So they hold monthly meetings. They stopped for a while during the pandemic, but they're now back to having socially distanced meetings at the MCC of the Spirit up in Harrisburg every month. And they've been a great resource for a lot of the trans community. And the Rainbow Rose Center has been doing our transgender support group meetings in partnership with Trans Central PA.
Excellent. Thank you all so much for sharing those resources. To the folks at home who are just joining us now, welcome. If you do have any questions for our panelists, please submit them in the Facebook comment section below. I definitely want to take some time to do a Q&A, but I think we might still have time to answer a few more questions. Obviously with this year and COVID, there have been many challenges. So I kind of wanted to touch base on that as well. So due to COVID, what are some unique challenges that our LGBTQ plus community is facing today? And if we want to go around similar to how we've been answering questions before, maybe speak on some challenges that we're facing, and then see about also just as nonprofits, how can we address these challenges. So I'll start with Charles.
Okay. I would say some of our issues today is within our government. And I think there is a date coming up, November 3rd, that we can make some changes so we can stay on a steady course of making life very safe for everyone. So don't forget, vote. And as Trump would say, vote twice or 3 times. Just kidding. The other thing is religion. We have to not be afraid to confront the religious bigots, especially when we know their facts are totally wrong according to their Bible.
Thanks, Charles. Yes, vote, 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 vote. That is so important. I will speak on behalf of Lancaster Pride. Some of the many challenges that we've been facing this year as a Pride organization are being connected and staying connected to our community. Traditionally we would throw a huge Pride festival in June, which we ended up postponing to October, and then we made the smart but difficult decision then to go virtual. So we will be hosting a virtual Pride October 24th. We had requested submissions, video submissions from musicians, local queer artists, nonprofits, even some of the vendors that we would traditionally work with to submit some video submissions for our Pride Fest. So that will be on October 24th on our Facebook page and social media. But in response to COVID, one thing that we have developed within our board, we have a newly formed board position, community outreach coordinator. And it's been a tricky position this year. We saw the need to have this position after last year's Pride. And of course, now with COVID, it makes it very difficult to get connected with the community, but even more important to have this position, which is currently being held by Delaney Loughran. And she is working to actively recruit people within her committee for a social activist liaison, which is intended to get our board and organization connected to the larger community. So those are some things that we are doing to try to address some of the connectivity issues that we've seen during COVID. And I'd like to then popcorn to Ricardo.
So COVID-19 has brought on so many challenges. Everything has gone virtual. Zoom right now is the bane of my existence. I'm sure Adrienne feels my pain as well. But we've also been trying to push for more education. And speaking of which, it's LGBTQ plus History Month. And you know, the movement has its ups and downs. Chaos, despair, miscommunication, hope, perseverance, love. These are all words I use to describe the LGBTQ plus liberation movement. And there are a select few throughout history that have delayed progress, but many more of us have taken action. So I'll start off with Stonewall, when trans women of color fought back against the police when they were raided on June 28, 1969. Which sparked the international LGBTQ plus liberation movement. We also can't forget that white gay men hijacked the LGBTQ plus movement and refused to hear the plight of women, communities of color, and transgender people in particular. Anywhere from politics to media to business, right? We also can't forget that lesbians weren't even accepted on the National Organization for Women, and Betty Friedan, who some would consider a women's rights icon, refused to recognize the plight of transgender women and lesbians. Another word that comes to mind describing the LGBTQ plus movement is tragedy. Too many lives have been needlessly lost, and many of those instances the public isn't even made aware of. One major tragedy occurred on one fateful night on June 24th, 1973, in the Upstairs Lounge in New Orleans. It was a bar and lounge that also served as their congregational space for local MCC churches. An arson started a fire, resulting in the death of 32 people, and it wasn't mentioned in any of the major newspaper medias, nor was it recognized even as a hate crime. And another word that comes to mind is victory. That's another word I would describe the LGBTQ plus movement. On December 15th, 1973, the American Psychiatric Association removed homosexuality from the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. Scientists discovered that gays are ordinary and just like everyday people. Shocking. So this victory now legitimizes shock therapy and gay conversion therapy, leading activists to take action. And the biggest opponents of homosexuality in the APA ended up having a son who turned out gay and served as a liaison to the gay community in Clinton's administration. Talk about irony. So, you know, we're in, it's not only National Coming Out Day, but it's also LGBTQ plus History Month. So if you don't understand our history, what do they say? It's destined to repeat itself. And so educating folks regarding these matters, and even when it comes to government, politics, and even civics, you know, we recently, you know, with the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, may her memory be a blessing. Folks are, LGBTQ plus rights are threatened, and even women's rights. That seat could be critical to rolling back or progressing some of our issues from marriage equality to non-discrimination, and a whole other list of legal issues, and that things are slowly getting better, but we also need to make sure we take action. Like, things didn't just miraculously happen just because kind folks decided to change the laws. No, it's because the people demanded it from our elected officials and from leadership. And the time is now to take action. And so I'm glad that we're able to talk about these issues and talk about our stories and coming out. I still come out several times, even to this day, to folks I haven't met, or even to family members I haven't met. And so these are, it's time to celebrate, right? But it's also a time to, realize, why do we need a closet to begin with? And what can we do to make this a better future for the next generation? But yeah, thank you so much, Alex, for organizing this, and Lancaster Pride and the panel for participating. And I'll give it back to you, Alex.
Thank you, Ricardo. Ricardo was also very instrumental in organizing this event, so I want to thank him as well. And actually, shout out to Ricardo speaking on LGBTQ plus history. Thursday, October 15th, from noon to 12:45, Ricardo is going to be presenting on more about LGBTQ plus history within a virtual event held by Central PA Community College. And that will be a Zoom event. So keep your eyes out on Lancaster Pride's
Harrisburg
Facebook.
Area Community College, sorry.
Oh, Harrisburg. Okay, Harrisburg Area Community College. Thank you. Keep your eyes out on Lancaster Pride's Facebook page. We will be promoting that event as well. And we're excited to, I'll be there to speak a little bit on behalf of Pride. And I'm excited to hear more about our history and have Ricardo speak on that. I also wanted to make a little segue too, based on what Ricardo was speaking on. He talked about victory within the community, and I think this year it's been a very difficult year. So I kind of wanted to ask the question: what are some triumphs within our community this year? And like, what are some ways that we can celebrate these triumphs? So the next person, I believe, would be Rafael. Would you like to kind of speak on some of the victories that we've had within our community?
Yeah, no, I think, to speak to some of those challenges, I think, with COVID-19, one of the main things that we were working on as a commission was to start collecting data and to start recognizing that LGBTQ people that data should be collected. So in the beginning of the pandemic, we had brought it up. We said, why aren't we collecting data on people, like the infection rate for LGBTQ people? So we kind of did an advocacy campaign, an inside-outside campaign. Stakeholders on the commission and outside of it really pushed the Department of Health, the State Department of Health, to collect that data. And the reason why it's important is because if there's no data collected, then our community continues to then deal with the intersectional issues of not having access to good health care and just all the other factors that come into that. So one of the victories was that we were able to advocate and get that data collected. So now SOGI data, or sexual orientation, gender identity data, is collected with the contact tracing portion of COVID-19. So that is a victory, right? Because if the problem isn't seen, it's not fixed. And many people were people, especially on the commission, that have lived through the worst parts of the HIV/AIDS epidemic, said we're not going to repeat that history, right? They were really steadfast in saying, look, the community has gone through the denying and the lying of government officials. The Reagan administration was hostile. I mean, the Trump administration is too, right? But the Reagan administration, when they noticed that it was impacting only LGBTQ individuals or majority LGBTQ individuals, they said, oh, well, and I think that, many people on our commission and on our health committee said, no, we're not repeating history, and I feel like that was a victory in many ways. And I saw Jody Sunshine Comas was talking about non-discrimination. The state of Pennsylvania, that you are not protected, right? You may have your local municipality like Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and I think there are like 60 municipalities that have passed non-discrimination ordinances. And just like to break that down a little bit, in certain parts of this state, someone could find out that you're gay or trans, and they could decide not to render you services. So if you go to a pharmacy to get your medications and that pharmacist does not like gay, trans, lesbian, anyone from the LGBTQ community, they could deny you service. I think the wedding cake example is like kind of like the most used, but in the times of COVID, right, what's open? It's our essential services, right? So in Pennsylvania, people are allowed to do that. This is like some comparative to Jim Crow, right? Like, back in the day, it was certain lunch counters only allowed certain people. And that kind of discrimination in Pennsylvania in certain municipalities is still possible. In your now with employment, I think a victory was the Supreme Court ruling in June, protecting people from discrimination on employment. But that only applies to businesses and organizations of 15 people or more. Anything below that, which is a huge subset of employers in the state of Pennsylvania, are small businesses. People can still discriminate. And then the last discrimination, well, you can be discriminated in many places, right? But I think the other one is housing, right? Your landlord, if they don't, they could deny your application if they see that you're, married to a person of the same sex, or if you're a trans person, they can deny you housing, and that goes into also banks. Banks won't necessarily be more amicable to lending because it's people, right? So people have prejudicial actions. So again, in Pennsylvania, if you are in your, if your municipality does have a Human Relations Act, right, or a Human Relations Ordinance, that's what protects you from discrimination. And you can go to your local Human Relations Commission and put out a complaint and put something in motion for enforcement. But in the state of Pennsylvania, as a whole, we don't have protection specifically for people's gender identity and sexual orientation, right? So in the state of PA, we don't have that, and we've been pushing the state legislator to pass an amendment to the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act to include sexual orientation and gender identity on that. And it's important because, again, some municipalities will never get there, right? Their town councils are just very much in the past, and passing that at the state would really give a blanket of coverage for people from discrimination. So I just wanted to address Jordy Sunshine Coma's comment, and yeah, I think there are a lot of victories. Like the Supreme Court was a victory. Getting SOGI data is a victory, but it's all part of a continuum of work. So I think, we can't just throw our hands up and say, oh, marriage equity, and then we're good, right? Marriage equity was great for people who had privilege, right? For white cis men, that was great for them. And it's great for the community as a whole. But, as a Latinx individual who, has a neighborhood in poverty, the marriage equity wasn't the main concern. And I think that we need to continue fighting as a coalition, and it's hard work. I think Ricardo talked about it a little bit earlier, that coalition sometimes gets a little frayed because, people are different, and we should respect each other's differences, and and keep intersectionality at the center of the work we do. I think that, no one's a rainbow flag, right? No one is just queer. No one's just gay. Everyone has an identity that they bring with that, and that needs to be really honored in our movement to ensure that we respect people and understand that oppression is it exists in all of our identities. So I think I definitely wanted to just kind of put that out there, that people should always recognize their privilege. I'm a cisgender white Latino. There's privilege that comes with that, and recognizing that is super important to ensure that we continue getting victories, because there's so much work still to be done.
Thank you, Rafael. That's a very good point. I am curious. We mentioned the Supreme Court ruling in June. That is certainly a big victory. However, it sounds like there's still obviously a lot of work to be done in Pennsylvania. How does that Supreme Court ruling affect us in PA?
Well, I think it's a change to Title VII, I believe it was Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. So again, Title VII is for employment. So if you work in an organization or a company that has 15 employees or more, you are now protected by the federal government from discrimination from employment. Now, the problem is that, that's not your house, right? So you can be kicked out by your landlord in certain municipalities in Pennsylvania. You can be denied services. So you can be from Philadelphia, and then you go out to Forest County, Pennsylvania, and a person can deny you services, right? That diner, that first, medical treatment, they can deny you services, not legally, but yes, legally here, because the law doesn't cover people. So the Supreme Court dealt with specifically employment, and employment for organizations of 15 people or more. But the coverage doesn't, any 14 people or less, which is many. I mean, most small businesses are 14 people or less. Most organizations are. You're not protected. And it's unfortunate, right? Like, you don't get really protected from bigotry. You just have the laws to then ensure that people know that there's some protection. But that doesn't, having a law there doesn't change the actions of people if they already have bigotry in their heart, right? So the ruling is important, but it doesn't cover everything, and that's also something important to know. And people know that, right? Like, the ones who want to discriminate, they know that they have 12 people, and they're not going to hire someone because of their sexual orientation or gender identity. And it's really important to understand that distinction, so we don't just rest on our laurels and know that, yeah, we should vote on November 3rd. We should vote every election. There's 2 elections at least every year. There's a primary, and then there is a general election. If you don't like the people running in the general, it's because you didn't vote in the primary, right? So, and sometimes there's a special elections, and those are even worse. So become a super voter, and not just vote, but keep tabs on what's going on. If you can, spend 5 minutes reading up what's going on in Harrisburg. It's a mess. Harrisburg is a mess. And it's because, people get away with going away from where their constituents and doing things in Harrisburg. So, spend some time really monitoring what's going on there, and then understanding where, what the impacts of a Supreme Court ruling or a passage of an amendment to the PHRA, what that would mean.
Thank you so much, Rafael. Again, welcome to the folks that just joined us. We are hosting a LGBTQ+ town hall for National Coming Out Day. Right now, we are speaking on some of the victories within our community this year. Despite COVID, there have been some victories. Tesla, would you like to share some victories that are taking place right now, specifically in York County?
Yeah, so I'm really glad that Rafael brought up the Supreme Court upholding the Civil Rights Act of 1964, because that is important. But like you said, it's very limited reading. We are lucky in York City, at least, to have AHRC, which does provide that protection for housing, for employment, for services. We know that right now we are trying to expand that Human Relations Commission to include all of York County. So they're looking at building another one to cover the entire county. Really, what we should be doing is forcing through our votes to get people in who will vote for the PA Equality Act. So voting is extremely important, especially this year. Some other triumphs, though, we know that COVID has forced people to lose the community connection that we not only crave, but we need. Like, people right now are feeling super isolated, super anxious, they're super depressed, and in a lot of cases, especially for our youth, they're stuck in homes which are not supportive. Here in York County, we're a very conservative area. We're glad to see more parents coming to PFLAG. Right before the pandemic, we had our record number of 35 individuals who came. So that was super exciting. And then, of course, the very next month, we had to close everything down and move virtual. But it was the second only meeting that we didn't have in the 22-year history. So for that first month before we moved to virtual. But we are in a super conservative area, so there's abusive households where children do not feel safe coming out, or if they are out, they know that they could lose housing at any point. And that's why having local resources is so important. Part of COVID forced the Rainbow Rose Center to move virtual entirely again, but we started doing outreach to organizations like Bell Socialization Services. We worked with a lot of the homeless shelters and communities here in York County to find out which one of you are going to say, oh, this is a non-binary person, I can't put them in the assigned gender at birth housing shelter. So we found 2 local housing locations, including Bell Socialization Services and Youth Valley House, Valley Youth House, which specifically works with children, but they are very LGBTQI friendly and diverse. So it was really important for us to find those resources at the time. I'm also very proud seeing both Lancaster Pride, Reading Pride, Allentown Pride, or Lehigh Valley Pride, and Rainbow Rose Center all decide we're not going to cancel our events. I understand why Harrisburg Pride, Central PA Pride decided it's not worth moving virtual, but at the same time, we still need to acknowledge our community, to celebrate our community, and to come together. So like I said, Equality Fest weekend's been going on all weekend. I'm going to post in the comments our link to our YouTube channel so you can watch those virtual events. I encourage people to attend both the Lancaster Pride and go back and watch the Lehigh Valley Pride. These are amazing events which really celebrate our community and encourage people to live out openly and proud. But being that this is also Coming Out Day celebration, or Coming Out Day nationally, it's okay to recognize that you're not in a safe place, or you're not mentally or emotionally ready to come out. Just because you're not ready to come out doesn't mean you're not part of our community, and doesn't mean you're not supportive. We're here for you, and we will always be here for you. You don't need to wait till next year on October 11th to come out. Whenever you are ready and feel safe to do so, there are communities, there are organizations which are here to help you do that. Thank you, Alex.
Excellent. Yeah, excellent. Thank you so much, Tesla. Yes, absolutely. Please leave a comment below for Equality Fest. We would love to have people on Lancaster Pride's page get involved with Equality Fest. Also, thanks for mentioning about the Human Relations Commission. The City of Lancaster also has a Human Relations Commission, which if you go onto cityoflancasterpa.com, you can find more information about it. And we have that resource as well within Lancaster. So now I would like to popcorn to Andrienne.
Sure. And a couple of things that I had at the top of my mind were said. First came to mind was the SCOTUS decision around non-discrimination. And I'm really glad that we talked about the limitations of that. These anti-discrimination decisions around employment are a lot like our other kind of employment legislation and legal, what are the words that I'm looking for? It's a lot like other things that like kind of legislate around jobs, right? So wage theft is illegal, but it still happens. And the only way to fight back against it is to have the resources and the access and the time to push back and fight back against it. And so the same thing happens when it comes to discrimination from the workplace. It's really important to have those protections. We have to recognize that what is really needed is a cultural shift, so that people aren't being discriminated against, they aren't being skipped over for jobs, ignored for jobs, fired from their jobs in the first place, right? So they don't have to go through that. And also, as was said, passing the Fairness Act or the Equality Act, whichever one it is, which expands these protections to Pennsylvania residents when it comes to housing and services and other parts of our lives, because we are not just jobs. It's not just capitalism. We need homes and we need places to be safe. Something else that I think is a win in a longer battle, and it is a win for our community, but it is a win by Black organizers, is the elevation of the demands to defund the police and moving towards abolition. I was reading an article the other day from them. They were talking about a study that was done recently that said 8% of Black LGBTQ youth, 8% feel that the police are there to keep them safe. We know that the police don't keep our communities safe. Indeed, a lot of the fight, when Ricardo talks about Stonewall, that was an anti-police demonstration. That was the police trying to keep the community down, the community fighting back. So I think the movement to defund the police and moving towards more compassionate solutions for our communities is a win for us. And so it's really exciting to see that being elevated and being moved forward and being moved into a more, I think, kind of like commonly talked about realm of things. So that was one thing that I wanted to lift up when it comes to some wins. It's a small win, right? Getting that onto a more public forefront is a small win in a much, much larger battle. But I think it is important, and it's given me a lot of hope when it comes towards moving towards a safer society for all of us, especially the most marginalized in our community. And so that one gives me hope. The efforts and the organizing that I've seen this year, how careful people have been with their community, the mutual aid work that has come out of both COVID-19 and the responses and the protests and the uprisings that have happened across the state and across our country have given me immense hope. So that for me was the win that came to mind.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Certainly that is a huge win, and yet something that there will be continual progress on, something that we will continue to fight for. So we are near the end of our virtual town hall broadcast. I did want to open the floor for any closing remarks from our panelists. I see here too, we do have some questions from folks at home. Can you speak on how people from Lancaster and supporting communities can volunteer and support Lancaster Pride? Absolutely. So if you're interested in being a volunteer for Lancaster Pride, please reach out to us. You can do that on our website, lankpride.com/volunteer. That's one way to get involved with us. We are actively recruiting new members to help us out on every level of our organization, at the board level to committee level to just if you only have a couple hours a week but you want to get involved and help volunteer, we would love to hear from you and get you connected. That's definitely a way to get to get connected with us. And then the second part of that question was during the COVID pandemic, since traditional volunteerism isn't possible, like I mentioned before, we are doing a virtual Pride, and we will likely continue to do virtual events throughout the winter until it is safe again to throw a big festival. So if you do decide to volunteer with us, lankpride.com/volunteer, we are definitely exploring different opportunities to continue hosting virtual events. That being said, I do also want to give a shout out for October 15th, the LGBTQ plus history event that Ricardo is doing with Central PA College HAC. There will be more details about that on our Facebook page. Also, a way to get connected, even if you don't want to volunteer but just want to get connected with the community. Lancaster Pride does have a Discord server that we launched in the spring. So that would be the Lancaster LGBTQ plus community. That's the name of the Discord server. So if you are on Discord, that's one way to stay connected to members of the community. I would like to just open it up to all the panelists for closing remarks. So whoever would like to speak.
Yes, this is Charles.
I'll speak.
I would like to just mention one thing, and also thank Tesla for his leadership by coming a stranger from outside of our state, coming into our little town of York, and getting people together, and people who have not really always worked on the same page, and now we are going to be working on the big picture, not just our individual little paragraphs, to make the change that needs to be made.
I wanted to speak briefly about some of the upcoming events for the Rainbow Rose Center, if that's okay. So in addition to our coming out event tonight, which is hosted in partnership with Union Lutheran Church of York, later this month on October 19th, so that's next Monday, actually, not that far away, we are holding a educational panel much like this called Authentic and Professional, and that's being hosted with a gentleman out of Gettysburg who identifies as gay, and he's going to be talking about like how to be authentically professional in a work environment, so that you don't have to hide who you are. You can come out of the closet, you can wear your clothes that you think best represent you and still come off as professional in that kind of workspace. In addition, in November, I think on November 10th, we're doing creating accessibility within LGBTQIA plus spaces with a person who is both deaf and wheelchair bound. So creating safe spaces for disabled individuals so that they can have access to those queer spaces that we're trying to create. And finally, we are doing a Transgender Day of Remembrance Vigil in partnership with UCC Dover on November 20th. And that will be a hybrid virtual event and in-person event, provided the pandemic keeps going the route that it's taking currently. So those are some events. Those can all be found out about on our Facebook page, and soon after this weekend on our website as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Tesla. I just had a question come in to Lancaster Pride's Facebook Messenger. Someone asked a question, are there any organizations that you would suggest looking into regarding grants and financial assistance that are available for trans men?
I think look into Trans Central PA. They occasionally will be doing grant programs. Rafael, you might know more on that. I don't think there's any specifically in the York County area, though it is something that we do hope to do in the upcoming future through the Rainbow Rose Center.
Yeah, I'm not too aware of grants in general. Just the space of the commission is really kind of like a clearinghouse of organizations and leaders throughout the Commonwealth, and mostly work on policy. So the grant space I'm not as familiar with. So yeah, unfortunately, I'm not the best resource for knowing where grants kind of live. But yeah, I don't know if anyone else on the stream knows a little bit more about grants.
I know locally here in Philly, Bread and Roses Fund does a lot of granting to social justice groups, specifically working in Black and Brown communities. And I know that they have given grants to ACT UP and other organizations, so they may be someone to look at if you're local. Or they may have other ideas too when it comes to if you're looking for something more statewide.
Excellent. Thank you all. So if there's no more questions from the audience, I want to make sure that I address all the questions here. I'm looking through the comments now. I'm not seeing any questions. Well, I do want to thank everyone today for joining this live stream broadcast for National Coming Out Day. This was the first time I've ever done one of these events, and I am very excited to do another one in the future. I want to thank everyone on the panel today. I also would like to thank Ricardo as well. He was very instrumental in helping me organize this. And I'm excited to continue doing these types of discussions and using Lancaster Pride as a platform to have these really awesome discussions and hopefully provide resources to those who are at home.
Thank you all. Thank you for having this space for us to come together
Awesome.
virtually.
Thank you so much, Alex.
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for organizing.
Happy National Coming Out Day.